Hello, welcome to the first episode of Ethos and the Future of Work. I'm Sarah, this is
Charlotte, and we're also joined by
Harry. Hi there, nice to meet you.
and for our first ever episode, we will be talking with Rob Pye, the co-founder of Ethos. So, welcome to our Future of Work series. And the first question is the obvious question, which is who are you and what's your why?
So my name is Rob Pye. I'm one of the founders of Ethos. I guess what's my why is that if you go back far enough, I'm a geek. I love technology. I also love complicated problems, and that technology in itself doesn't really do anything unless it interacts with humans, and it's that boundary really between tech and people that fascinates me most. So the why is very much that work is a key part of that piece that people, we all do stuff, whether it's volunteering, whether it's turning up for a job, and technology and people have such a big role in that. And I'm very motivated to look at future work, to look at improving the lives of individuals, communities, the world, through what we're doing via organizations, work, technology. Complex problems really get me motivated most.
I suppose the world of work is probably one of the most complex problems to tackle. So for you, and I know you probably have many answers to this, but we're going to try and limit it slightly, but what should the future of work look like?
I think in a word, or something that's about people and communities. So rather than work being about organizations or product, that we should, there's lots of buzzwords, human-centric or peer-to-peer or many of those, but work should be about people.
And I know you'd like to talk a bit more about supply-led versus demand-driven work, which obviously fits into this idea of it being people-focused rather than, I suppose, business focused. It's still business focused, but you know what we mean.
Yeah, so it was not something that's been in my head for years and years, but we make work very much about the job description and the business case, the economic business case of a role, and almost specify the role as something quite machine-like, and then fit people into that. And if somebody doesn't do the role, then they get another one and another. So it's a market-driven approach. So I'm referring to that as demand-driven. I am proposing it should be the other way around and be about supply, about people. So you should build work and jobs from the people and what they're passionate about, what they can do, the economic, the social, environmental value. And it's not difficult to imagine a work system that's the other way around. And so you could create a cheap little buzzword phrase for that, about supply, not demand. Supply-led, not demand-driven. That's what I mean by that.
I was going to say, I feel like it makes so much more sense for work to operate that way, because if the world of work exists in a way that's supply-led, not demand-driven, then jobs that people do are just going to be so much more suited to the skill sets that they have and the passions that they have, and then the outcomes are going to be so much more valuable because you're not trying to squeeze people into kind of predetermined molds that already exist, but allowing them kind of autonomy to do things in the way that they would want to and are best at. So yeah, it makes sense. If you could give us any examples of supply-led rather than demand-driven work, what that kind of might look like in practice.
Well, so I guess at its raw level, it's quite entrepreneurial in that if you imagine one of you is starting your own business, very simply, you don't have any money to start a business. You need to do stuff to create a brand, to create sales, to create customers, to create products and services that then lead to money. and when you get money in from your work, you get paid. If you don't get money in, you don't get paid. You could get a banker or an investor to lend you some money, but that's just being a bank. I could go to Barclays and get a loan, or an investor to own part of the business. Well, that's a call on future income. But these are just bankers' tools. At the end of the day, where the entrepreneurial analogy is that, when I created Ethos, there were no customers. Millions and millions of pounds that we've had in income have all been because we delivered stuff ahead of having the money to fund it. That's the way it works. So by spreading that to all workers, there is no reason why the overall enterprise shouldn't be as or more efficient than an industrial organization, where everybody's much more involved in taking a direct share of the money that is associated with their work. So work first and money second.
It seems like it's sort of going back to a very traditional way of doing work or economics in any regard. It's you create a product, you sell that product, and because you sold that product, you get that money back, which is so much more simplifying than all the different economic ideas and principles that are unfortunately blasting our world currently. But what I was going to ask is, obviously, and I know this is a bit of a bad word, but furlough and furlough and just the current situation that we're in, where we've got so many people out of work, and whether this is they're getting paid just to not go to work, which doesn't really make any sense, or just people who can't get jobs, like myself, Charlotte, and Harry have experienced. How do you reckon the supply-led and versus the demand-driven helps with this sort of world scenario that we have at the moment?
So I think a couple of things to say. First thing to say is that my belief is that when you have fun and you do your best work, it doesn't feel like work, and it gives you lots of things that horrible work wouldn't give you, like mental health and feeling of fulfillment and confidence and satisfaction and enjoyment. So when people are not working and who would like some work to do, it is really, really damaging. So furlough, for people to sit at home in their gardens and not be doing, not be having any of the joys of work, it just seems really damaging. But I think that the first point is that work, should be something very joyous. The furlough thing gives us an opportunity for, number one, people have an opportunity to think. Number two, furlough gives people who are furloughed the opportunity to explore for money. You're allowed to work elsewhere. So there's a number of things. Furlough is a potential, but we've seen no realization of it for this concept called universal basic income to be applied at scale. So if we were given 6 months of funding because of furlough, because of brilliant programs like Kickstart, to explore with individuals where they're best at working productively, to then make economic ends meet on a sort of salary basis, you kind of got a platform or a system that would enable a big transformation in work, because the really hard stuff of what we've been practicing in Ethos is the economic sustainability. Because if you have a business case for a role, because you produce, let's say, iPhones, and you run a pub, or you've got an economic business case that says, if you come in and do X, Y, Z as part of my product or service, I can pay you Y. Somebody else has done the economics for you, and actually the work from an employer's perspective becomes easy. It's more difficult to take the entrepreneurial approach like we're doing and going, I'll do the work and then I'll make it pay for my work second. Therefore, you need a bit of a kickstart. You need a bit of a universal basic income. You need a bit of a furlough to give the seed, funding to then go, right, I'm going to explore this kind of work and I'm going to make it pay. Actually, if it doesn't, maybe I would, be better off, or maybe that, there isn't a pathway in that regard for me. I'll find another one. So you need help. Not everybody can work for 6 months with no money. Some people can, but the money element is really important.
I suppose that's especially true for young people who don't have any money to begin with. They can't have had the savings to suddenly go, oh, you know what, I'll work for free for 6 months. It's just not a plausible thing. But this idea of a universal basic income, lots of people would probably say that's quite a radical idea. I personally disagree with that, but it is unfortunately something that people would say. So I was wondering, how do people react to your ideas of what work should be and how it should be led?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. So if somebody experiences an ethos, it's really easy to understand, because it's like there's no rocket science, it's just common sense. So it's really easy to experience. It's very difficult to conceptualize, because at the level of an employer, somebody that runs a pub, somebody that runs an iPhone factory, or an industrial complex, it's just not the way that work is done. And there's a 200-year history of why work has been done like that. The Industrial Revolution, things called Taylorism, things called Fordism, which is work is designed to be fit for robots. Work is designed to be deconstructed into units of repeatability and substitutability. That was good for the industrial age. It's rubbish for the knowledge era, the knowledge workers, people who work at home, who do jobs like we're doing. You cannot say you're going to come in, Harry, Sarah, and this is what you're going to do on Monday, this is what you're going to do on Tuesday. It just it doesn't work. We're dealing with complex problems where you talk about the outcome, the change, and therefore you need to be good at solving problems and interacting and talking and using the internet. And these are the jobs that are still going to be there when the robots do the burger flipping and the ordering in pubs and the serving. All those jobs are going to be done by robots. That's AI. The jobs that are going to be left are knowledge jobs, the creative jobs, curation, art, all those things that robots have not yet mastered.
I was just going to say, it's like interesting because what you just said there reminded me of a module I did at uni in business, and it was about like methods of job evaluation and how we determine rates of pay for XYZ jobs. And it's just so interesting because the way that it's actually done is based on things that were deemed to be valuable, like in the industrial era, and it's still the same, and it's still the way that jobs are and pay is determined. But if we work in a way that's supply led, then I feel like that leaves more space to allocate pay based on outcome and based on value that's produced, rather than based on like, I don't know, how good you are at touch typing and like whether or not you can sell, and like, I don't know, before you've actually done it. And
the really interesting thing about that module of job evaluation is that it is a direct product of something called Taylorism.
Yeah.
And Taylorism allows you to evaluate a role, a job, and put a number on it. And it says that if your turnover is X million, therefore you need these many jobs, and the economic value of a factory worker who screws tops on bottles of vinegar or whatever is and that's how the industrial work system was developed. Now, we've not moved on from that. We still evaluate jobs in business school based on building cars, in the 19th century.
Yeah. And this is a bit of a sidetrack, but it also feeds into like many different problems like the gender pay gap, because the way that we evaluate jobs is the same way that we've evaluated jobs for literally years and years and years. So the things and the qualities that we perceive to be valuable are still the same qualities that we perceived to be valuable when we were much more stuck in a place of stereotyping people and stereotyping roles.
Especially that those inequality gaps have suddenly become a lot more noticeable now that the world of work has been turned upside down due to COVID. Yeah. It's just very interesting. One other question I was going to have, obviously you're not from the 19th century, but you have been in the business for a while. Sorry, I realised that sounded a lot more insulting when I intended that to you. But you've been in the business for a while, and especially where there has been lots of technological development, because that's really happened even over the last 20 years. It's it's only been about 15 years since the first iPhone came out. So it's not a reflection of how old you are, I promise. But I suppose, how have you reacted, or how have you seen this development of technology and how that has shaped your views of what the future of work should look like? Because there has been such a dramatic change in what work can be.
Yeah, so I think memorable moments. So when I did my computer science degree, it wasn't actually long after punch cards, so you didn't have USB sticks. You would program the computers with pieces of paper with holes in, and we all used to go to the computing lab to log on to a green screen. Nobody had a home computer. It's like that. It was that long ago. So we've seen computers in the home, and computers in the home have been a massive transformation. The internet has been the biggest transformation, and the internet is the infrastructure, as opposed to the World Wide Web, which is the www side of it. And then the internet has had an outcome I never, when in the late 90s, I was rather a dreamer, hoping that the internet would allow the democratization of organizations, of knowledge, of capital. But it's actually just allowed industrialization to get on acid, really. And what we've got now is industrialization on acid. And that, it's crazy. So I think other tech revolutions have been the mobile phone. And so you've seen the computers coming, from the library, where I had to go into the library, to the home, to the new phone I've got. It's just like a mega computer. I mean, what you can do on the phones now, you can do everything. So I think the world has designed everything to work on a mobile phone. Technology has not changed the business models fundamentally, as we just described. We see transnational global business models for the major corporates like Google, and technology has fueled that on acid, but governmental models have really resisted tech enablement. I mean, we've seen small countries in Europe like Estonia who are really good at e-democracy, but other democracies, you see in the United States with the election and the ballot boxes and the processes that are just not technologically enabled at all. We can't vote in the UK using our phones or computers, and that's quite crazy. So the adoption of technology into making democracy more transparent has been quite slow. So massive and slow, I think, is the quick answer.
Well, I shan't press too much further if we're going to go into voting and politics. That might be a bit too dangerous to the territory.
Yeah, no, this is we're saying accessible.
How do you feel supply-led work is sustainable?
It's a brilliant question. No, it's a really good question, because in the old system, people have a view of job security, and it's like, if I go and work for big company XYZ, I've got a job, I've got a monthly salary, that's it, I'm done. And I've got a pension and I've got job security. And then you turn up to the office one day and you get restructured and somebody just says you're fired, or sorry, we've got to let you go, or other euphemisms, hundreds of them. So actually what you've got is the concept that somebody else owns your security, your sustainability. In a future of work system, as we're talking about here, the owner of that sustainability is the individual. So I don't know how I've done it, but I've been on the payroll of Ethos for the last 11 years, and I haven't been a contractor. I've just worked the Ethos way. So I'm probably the oldest example, or with Tony, who's like really old, but of people who have done this for over 10 years, and we've been regular monthly salary because we've been working on projects, delivering the value and then getting paid for it. But it looks for us like a payroll, every month we get a salary. It's not as lucrative as being in EY for us at the moment. Maybe never will be. It's not as lucrative as being in a bank. Maybe never will be. I don't know. Money isn't the primary driver for Tony and I, but we've got kids, we've got mortgages, we've got, to pay the bills. So we've managed to make the work system work for us and many other people. So the exciting sustainability evidence will be, with, and I haven't talked a lot about this, but the young leaders who we have now and the young leaders that we can recruit are our future. And I mean that you can teach us what we need to learn about how to make it sustainable. You can teach us everything we need to know about building the platform, about where the work in the future is going to be, because it's going to be the work you do rather than what we do. And it's I think the young leaders experiment into the future of work is really more Ethos than we've ever been. It's just brilliant. So thank you.
Lovely. I think the only thing else I have to ask, which actually is not a question, it's more of a request from Annabelle about including something fun.
So Annabelle's always had this thing, right? So before fun was invented, right, a few years ago, people in work would never be allowed to talk about fun. And because you were work, you had to wear suits to work. You were wearing your suit. You're a very alpha male. And it was like, no, we work. We're in business.
Yeah.
And Annabelle has always been that's, isn't it, or whatever the polite word is. Like we have to be allowed in work to be bring our whole self to work and enjoy it. Just have a laugh and So years and years ago, Annabelle and I, but Annabelle mainly, was part of an online community called Brainstorms from a guy called Howard Rheingold, who was a founding father of something called cyber sociology, working life online. And he used to have a group in his community called Fun, and it was PHUN. And that was why we call it PHUN in Ethos, because it's like, now the modern scientists are going, oh yes, it's important to have fun at work. So it's kind of, people are catching up. I think that we recognize that we are our best selves when we're happy, we're laughing, we're not worried about saying the wrong thing or, embarrassing ourselves. It's sort of, so I think enjoyment is maybe a word I'd use. It's just it's really important to enjoy it. However that is, whatever so everybody, I think fun is a very unique thing. The enjoyment, game, playing, it's a very individual centric thing, isn't it? It's everybody has. So my lovely wife Sarah, she loves painting, not freeform, but just any form of painting. And I look at some of the really complex, she's doing these sort of mega colourful, painting by number things, and very intricate, tiny, and she was there for like hundreds of hours, and I look at that and I it's like, this is torture for me. It's just like not enjoyable, and I just couldn't think of anything worse. And then Sarah comes to my office and sees me with a soldering iron or a programming line of tinkering, and I'm doing something. I get lost. I lose time. I could be there for hours and hours with a piece of electronics or something that doesn't work, and I'm having fun doing that because I am a geek, and I like doing that. So I think everybody has fun in different ways, and we should respect that, and we should bring that to work. So the Ethos Book Club, just put a little plug in for that. Clearly we've got an Ethos partner who just loves books, and so she's doing something that she thinks will be beneficial for Ethos, but she's doing it with the Ethos Book Club. I mean, just giving permission for us all to do that, that's just brilliant, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's things like that keep Ethos as a company feeling more like a living, breathing thing. Like it feels more like watering a plant than oiling a machine, which is ironic considering it's such a technology-based company, and I don't know, it's interesting sort of regarding that in terms of sustainability, going back to that again. Parts of it is quite improvisational in a way. We're all not necessarily making up as we go along, but we're still figuring things out as we're going along. And it's interesting that I think we're able to do that as a company while still, not accidentally pressing a button and tanking the whole thing.
Yeah, we've had that before.
Well, that sounds like an excellent story, which we may not have time to do now.
So I think again, that humanocracy, experimentation, innovation, these are things that the manufacturing plant doesn't, it doesn't want you to experiment in how you screw doors onto cars. It wants it to be done the same for every door, and therefore it's prone for a robot screwing that door on. But we're doing work that isn't repeatable. Art, creativity, innovation, experimentation, these are not things that lend themselves to being mechanized. So watering the plant, not oiling the machine. Yeah,
that take a long time. I've been sitting on it for about the last 10 minutes, I think.
Where can I get that one in? But the organic, they're good. I mean, we're talking about replicating Ethos for young leaders, and the analogy of we've created a business, a cell called Young Leaders, and if we're going to scale that to 30,000, you can't create a machine with no people in it. You need to do that. What's the thing where a cell splits? I can't remember the biological term, but cells divide and divide and divide. Creating a network of ethoses where you've got something organic that you're watering because you've got people in it and you're nurturing and they're locally back. So we can't create an ethos of 30,000 people in our Slack, in our infrastructure that we've got right now. It has to be replicated, but there's no point in replicating it as a machine would. It needs to be replicated because you've got our young leaders who can then replicate an environment, and then when they're so we've just done it. We took a month or so experiment called People Product, and the three of us and other people were in that as a smaller group, and we're kind of now uploading that to young leaders, and we want to then be able to talk to the rest of the young leaders and take, because you couldn't do that in batches of 30. You kind of, it is definitely an organic thing.
Thank you very much, Rob, for joining us. It's been really, really a lovely chat.
Well, thank you, Charlotte, Sarah, Harry.